it was a mistake from Lando. The gap was not there. He has simply got too close to his teammate, ran out of road, hit the grass, skidded a little bit, got into the back of Oscar. What a huge, huge blow for Lando.
Hello everybody, welcome back to The Fast and the Curious. This is our Canadian Grand Prix debrief. What a battle we had at the end there. Let's get straight into it. I'm Betty Glover, alongside our one and only Christian Hugill, who is in Canada, sunning himself in the 25 degrees sun.
Yeah, it is absolutely beautiful. We've had great weather, which I have to say didn't really make for a great race, right? Up
No.
until the last 10 laps. And then, boy, did it come into life. Good Lord.
I know. Do you know what? I was sat there for most of it just trying to do like a rain dance. Like, come on, rain. And it never looked like it was coming because of those blue skies. But like you said, at the end, it all started happening. We had a late bit of drama, which will have massive ramifications, I think, for the championship. But let's run you through how this one finished then. George Russell converted pole position to win his first Grand Prix this season. Mercedes' first win of the season as well. Verstappen took second. Kimi Antonelli got his first Formula One podium. Go on, Kimi Antonelli, buzzing for him. What a weekend for him. The third youngest Formula One podium finisher as well. Championship leader Oscar Piastri took fourth. Charles Leclerc fifth. Lewis Hamilton sixth. Back-to-back points finish for Fernando Alonso. He took seventh. Back-to-back points finish as well for Nico Hülkenberg in eighth. Esteban Ocon took ninth. And Carlos Sainz took that last point spot in 10th. And it was a DNF for Lando Norris. Let's talk about it. Those final few moments for McLaren. Everyone said that they wanted that McLaren battle, Christian Hugill. We said we wanted that McLaren battle. We finally got it. And the only time that they battle all season, they collide. You're in Canada. What was that reaction? What was it like? What was everyone doing when that happened?
Oh, screams and shock and shouting. I went very high-pitched, which regular listeners will know is not exactly a surprise. Yeah, shock, horror. Listen, even McLaren themselves have been saying it's inevitable at some point that these two are going to come together. They haven't really come together in many ways. Actually, Lando hit Oscar. It wasn't 50-50. It was a mistake from Lando. The gap was not there. You saw him in the cool-down room, George saying, oh, the gap wasn't there, was it? Max saying, no, it wasn't. That is a mistake from Lando Norris. He has simply got too close to his teammate, ran out of road, hit the grass, skidded a little bit, got into the back of Oscar. He's incredibly lucky that he didn't take Oscar Piastri out as well. And there's comparisons being made to Jenson Button and Lewis Hamilton, who collided there when they were teammates from McLaren in 2011. The difference being there, Jenson sort of squeezed Lewis a little bit. Oscar can't be accused of the same here. Oscar was going about his business. Lando's unfortunately got too close in the heat of battle, having previously pulled off a great move into the chicane prior to the long back straight. But Lando's made a mistake, and enormous credit to him. He's been the first to hold up his hands and gone, my mistake, guys, my mistake. He's incredibly lucky he didn't take out Oscar Piastri. But what a huge, huge blow for Lando.
Yeah, I mean, you gutted for Lando. You saw him afterwards, didn't you, when he was walking out of that car? Just, excruciating for him. And yeah, like you say, credit to him, because he went on that team radio. He said, I'm sorry, it's all my bad, all my fault. It was unlucky, and it was really stupid from me. I worry a lot about Lando, because before the Canadian Grand Prix, he said that he makes too many mistakes after qualifying, because he qualified in 7th, didn't he? What went wrong for him there, do you think? Obviously, you can't get into his head and find out what was going through his brain, but why do you think he made that mistake?
I have no idea, and I don't know if Lando has any idea. He was asked about it a lot, obviously. He's just said too many mistakes. I actually was watching the race from my office where I'm working this weekend, and I was looking at the timing screen to the left of me. I had full access to the big timing screen, and I made a real point throughout the race of watching Lando's race pace, right? The race pace is there, right? He's not like he's the slower McLaren on race day, And I think the fact he was putting pressure on his teammate at the end of the race shows you that race speed is there. All of Lando's problems this year are coming in qualifying. He is giving himself far too much to do. He is making mistakes when it really counts. He can't get to grip with that car and put it together for that one lap. He makes these mistakes, and it's not been a weakness earlier in his career. It's something new to him this weekend. And yes, this mistake was in the heat of battle. So yes, this is a Sunday mistake, and that has to be acknowledged. But he probably wouldn't have been in that position if he hadn't had a bad qualifying. Lando Norris will not win this Formula One championship unless he sorts out his qualifying on Saturday, and he knows that. He's the first to admit that, and you heard his race engineer almost coaching him through the qualifying session on the radio, trying to give him that extra support. Ultimately, it wasn't enough, and once again, Oscar would have gone in, he wasn't on the front row, but Oscar's like, well, third would do me nicely, thank you very much. A podium would do me nicely. All right, he got fourth, but his main title rival crashed out. Oscar's going to have weekends like this. This is not a McLaren strong track. We'll get into why a bit later. But a fine weekend for Oscar Piastri, even though in the race, at times, he wasn't the quicker McLaren. But when things like that happen, it doesn't matter.
Let's take a look at it because, right, Oscar Piastri now has a 12-point swing. He leaves Canada with a 20-point lead over Lando in the Drivers' Championship. In terms of the World Championship, how big do you think this is going to be?
Massive. It's not too late. The World Championship isn't over. But we saw in Monaco Lando look more comfortable than Oscar. And then Lando did a great qualifying and won the Grand Prix. In practice, it was really difficult to see who looked quick, but Oscar didn't look comfortable. I was beginning to think, I think we might have a Monaco situation here where Lando actually does it this weekend. And then it all fell apart in qualifying. So I can't see the evidence that Lando is going to be able to sort these qualifyings out. And for that reason, the point swing, the lack of qualifying pace, and how much of a blow this will be mentally to have made this mistake and crashed out the race, it is going to be hard for Lando to come back from this. I hope Lando's okay. I hope he doesn't beat himself up too much. We don't like to see that. I like Lando. I spoke to him at length on Thursday and had a lovely chat with him. He's such a good guy. I hope he's okay. And I want there to be a championship battle as a neutral. So I hope he can recover, and I don't think it's too late.
There's still a long way to go, isn't there, Christian?
Yes, there is, but there's been long enough gone in the season to show a pattern. And you're right, Betty, it's not too late. But he needs to get qualifying sorted fast. He made that mistake, actually, in the heat of battle. Everyone makes mistakes occasionally. We saw Max lose his cool in Barcelona, so look, I don't actually have too many worries about Lando on a Sunday, despite what happened today. But where I do have worries is qualifying. And where I do have worries is Oscar seems to, this is not new. We've said it so much this season. Oscar seems to have that ability to keep his cool, which, Lando doesn't necessarily do. So mentally, I wonder, can he move on from this? I hope he can. And listen, times change in sport very quickly. If he goes to Austria, where he's been good in the past, albeit he's had contact in the past, but if he goes to Austria and puts in a good weekend and then has a good British Grand Prix, all of a sudden this weekend will feel like a long time ago. But I need people like me look for evidence of that. And Monaco aside, there's not really been much evidence of that. So I think this really could be one of those moments at the end of the season where we look back and go, from the time that Lando made that mistake in Canada, he never really looked like he could challenge again. I hope for his sake and the World Championship's sake that's not the case. But this could be massive. It could be really, really big. It's to crash out the race that late, to hit your teammate. We can't, as much as we like Lando, you can't ignore that. It's massive.
It's difficult, isn't it? Because on one side you go, okay, we've got 14 races left to go. That is a lot of races. So it's far from fatal for Lando Norris when it comes to his title hopes. But then on the other side you go, well, actually, if you take a look at it, his life is now so much harder than it was because he's going up against a teammate in Oscar Piastri, who on balance across the season that we've seen so far has just had that little edge. And like you say, it's the pattern that we just keep seeing. When is Lando Norris going to break this pattern?
When he fixes qualifying, because as I say, in the race, I don't think there's too much of a problem. And Betty, your analysis there is spot on. Your analysis is absolutely spot on. You look for the evidence, and we're not seeing that at the moment. And this is the thing. Oscar doesn't just have the calmness that we've spoke about. He has the sheer pace as well, and he has the pace to get in front and control Grand Prix. So. Yeah, it's going to be hard because it's not just Lando fighting to sort his own qualifying out. He's got a formidable teammate to beat who seems to be growing stronger. All right, this weekend, right? It's boiling hot here as I sit and talk to you now at 4:20 in the evening. But it's not always been this hot. There's been a breeze. It's been cool. It's been jacket weather at times. And McLaren doesn't seem to operate quite as well when it's hot, but actually more to the point, Mercedes do operate really well in cooler temperatures. Look at Las Vegas last year. So it's not been a big McLaren stronghold this weekend. I would expect them, Austria can be very hot. I've not seen the weather forecast. I would expect them to be stronger. And Oscar's got the ability to get out in front and control Grand Prix. Listen, Betty, the way we can sum it up is not impossible for Lando Norris to win this championship, but bloody difficult. And he really needs to fix qualifying and fast.
Okay, with that in mind, Verstappen has now reduced Oscar Piastri's lead to 43 points, and he's only 21 points behind Lando. Do we think that Max Verstappen and Red Bull can put even more pressure on McLaren with these 14 races to go? Do we think Max Verstappen could do it?
I think it'll be really interesting, Betty, because what I want to know is what upgrades are Red Bull going to bring? How confident are they in their 2026 package? Do they want to keep focusing resources on 2025 and throw upgrades at the end of this season? Because at the moment, even in Max's incredibly capable hands, races like this show to me where, Max drove well, but he didn't quite have the pace to get the better of Russell. I don't think they've quite got the pace to win the championship at the moment. So it'll be interesting to see how many upgrades they bring. If you get another 2 or 3 results like this one, you're thinking where Max finishes ahead of Oscar, you're thinking, okay, maybe there's something in this. Maybe it is a Piastri versus Verstappen championship battle. But if you don't, you start to look at Spain last weekend and think another example of where Max has really cost himself, because those points he can ill afford to give away. Races like this show, but, Max might just have a championship fight, and those lost points look even more crucial. So it will be really interesting.
We are going to take a very quick break, but when we're back, we're going to be talking more about Canada. Christian, we've got to talk about Mercedes because what a weekend it was for them. I, for one, am absolutely buzzing for both George Russell and Kimi Antonelli because with both of them, you could just see how much it meant. Kimi Antonelli looked like he had tears in his eyes. George looked like he had tears in his eyes. And I have missed George. You know when he gets onto the podium and he's got the champagne and he does that weird jump thing. I've just missed it. I've missed it and now I've seen it again.
I want to talk about Kimi first. Third youngest podium position finisher in Formula One history. A really good weekend and a really assured race. Think of how much those drivers were bunched up together at the end of the race. Think of what was going on in his mirrors between Piastri and Norris. To keep your cool in that situation is supremely impressive. Really impressed with Kimi. Remember the sprint race win in Miami where a new driver who's this young and this green shows these moments like the sprint race win in Miami where you think, these are moments we'll look back on. Another moment here, an assured, quick, calm, composed drive from Kimi Antonelli. And George Russell has impressed me so much this season. You're asking yourself the question, if you're Toto Wolff, is this man going to lead my team? Is he showing me he can battle Is he showing me he's got the real sheer speed? Is he showing me he can keep calm under pressure? Is he showing me he can lead from the front? He's answering all these questions emphatically. And am I going to risk the feng shui of my team by bringing in Max Verstappen? Well, I'm probably not. So I'm so impressed with George. People have said a few times this season, oh well, only Red Bull or McLaren can win a race. I'm not just saying this because he's won it. I've said no, Mercedes and George will win races this season, and they will. Again, upgrades will be important. Can they keep bringing upgrades? We hope they can, but George Russell is showing that if Mercedes in this new era can give him a car, he can and will fight for a championship. And racers like that will do his chances of getting a fast contract extension out of Mercedes no harm at all. As we speak, he hasn't got a contract for next season. This doesn't half say to Toto, let's get a pen, my friend. Let's put pen to paper because I'm your man. I can lead this team.
I would be very surprised if they got rid of George and brought in Max Verstappen, because also they had a sort of chance to bring in Max, didn't they? And sort of, I don't know what happened, but that broke down. That didn't happen.
Well, they did when he was a very, very young driver. But last year, when it was obvious that Lewis was leaving, Toto couldn't have flirted more publicly with Max if he tried, which was very funny because it wound up Christian Horner. So it was all good fun. But I think it became clear Max wasn't going anywhere. But as you say, now, why would you? You've got the textbook F1 driver lineup. You've got the more experienced driver who's still got plenty of life left in him. You've got this hotshot young rookie. Lovely stuff. I wouldn't be risking it. I think, all right, Max might give you a couple of tenths, but you know, he has a unique driving style, and Red Bull, in adapting their car and to that driving style and responding to that feedback, have basically made the second car undrivable. Is that a factor that you're going to risk if Mercedes is all of a sudden going to be built around Max Verstappen? With those two drivers, are you all of a sudden going to go, actually, let's build this team around Max, which is what Max requires? Probably not. I would be very surprised if we don't see a contract extension for George fast, because I think he could win a championship. Don't forget, this is a man with a very impressive junior series record. This is a man who's won championships throughout his early career. Why shouldn't he win a Formula One World Championship?
What I love is at the end of last season, you could tell that George was hungry for this season. You could tell that he was in the zone. He was ready to go, and he's just been so consistent this season, hasn't he? Just so incredibly consistent, and that's what you need from a driver at the top of their game. I'm just watching Fred Vasseur. He's just popped up on my screen. He looks like he's aged so much in the last few days. The guy just looks like he needs a lie down and a coffee.
Well, Betty, let's talk about that, because there's all this talk about Ferrari. And yes, the momentum, I've said this on the podcast a few weeks ago, the momentum seems to have stopped. But if you look back at the last decade plus of Ferrari since they last won championships, it's rinse and repeat. Bit of progress stops, Ferrari panic, sack the team principal, the whole process starts again. Ferrari, get rid of Fred if you like, but that's not your problem, lads. Fred's been around Formula One for a long time. He knows this sport. He's got the respect of drivers like Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton. At some point, it's the old soccer football analogy, Betty Glover. At some point, you're going to have to back a manager. And I just think Ferrari could do with a period of consistency to go, let's ride this out, actually. So Lewis Hamilton looked okay this weekend. Unfortunately, and very sadly, he suffered damage by hitting a groundhog.
Oh, don't. This has actually ruined my day.
I just think we should, at this point, just have a moment of silence for the groundhog. Let's just have a moment.
Is this enough of a moment, or do you want to keep going?
It's sadder than that, more of a moment.
Longer. Okay.
Yeah.
It's just we're a podcast, and I don't know if this sounds very good, but
Betty, can you show some respect?
sorry.
Right, carry on. That's enough. So that's enough. You don't want to take it too far. There's a line.
Yeah, there is a line, and I do sort of fear that we've crossed that line. But yeah, that honestly, that news has ruined my day. It really has ruined my day.
Well, think about how the groundhog feels. It's ruined his or her.
It certainly was Groundhog Day, wasn't it?
But anyway, they've lost the momentum. If I was Ferrari, I would be coming together and backing my troops. You've got Charles Leclerc, you've got Lewis Hamilton, you've got Fred Vasseur. Work at it together, because history shows us the chopping and changing approach hasn't worked. So if Ferrari are considering getting rid of Fred, I think that'd be a mistake.
I don't know what Ferrari were doing today though, because they just seemed like they were on a completely other page. Like they were on different pages. Charles Leclerc just seemed to not understand what was happening. Like they would have obviously spoken about their race strategy before the Grand Prix, but he was like, "Why are we doing this? What are we doing? Why are we doing this?"
We're recording this very shortly after the race, so it all may become a bit clearer, but Charles sometimes needs to realise the team have more data than him in the car. And yes, you trust your driver because they can feel, but Alex Albon struggled massively on the mediums. It ruined his race. Williams kept him on the mediums. It totally ruined his race. Granted, the car braking then properly ruined his race, but still. So Charles going, I like the mediums. Well, other people really struggled on them, Charles, and you wouldn't necessarily know that. So that's where, if I was Fred, I might be saying, Charles, listen, come on. I know we did listen, we did take it on board, but that medium looked a dog of a tyre at the point of the race. Now, maybe Charles was right after all, I don't know. But from my reading of the race, it looked like Ferrari just didn't have the pace, no matter what they did today. They gained 5th and 6th. That's as good as they were going to get for me. I don't think they had any more pace than that. They were not as quick as the McLarens or the singular Red Bull or the Mercedes. So I don't think they had anything else in them today.
Back-to-back points as well. We need to celebrate for Aston Martin and Fernando Alonso, and also Sauber and Nico Hulkenberg. On my radio radar today, Christian, the one thing that really stood out to me, and honestly, I've probably missed about 1,000,001 different radios because I'm in Seattle, guys, so give me a break. But the one thing that I did see was Fernando Alonso talking to his engineer, right? His engineer went, be gentle, entry turn 3 and turn 8, gentle entry 3 and 8. And he just replied, we are racing, not testing. He's just so brutal.
He is quite badass, isn't he? It's great. I do like Fernando. I moaned earlier in the season that he was grumpy. So I like that. This is good grumpy, though. This is, come on, I'm racing. That grumpy rather than just moaning. So I liked that from Fernando. Lovely. I like that fighting Fernando. Enjoyed that.
I love fighting Fernando, but how good is it to see him winning back-to-back points? Because for a long time we were just thinking, Jesus, when is Fernando going to ever win a point? Is this the end for him? Like what? But he seems to have stepped it up.
Credit to Fernando, he's driven really well. Credit to Aston Martin, they've improved that car. Lance Stroll doesn't look anywhere near the pace of Fernando, but listen, they've got a driver that can score points in Fernando, and Aston do seem to have made a step forward. And I want to give a huge shout out. My, what's the feature called again?
Christian's cubbyhole.
Christian's cubbyhole. Esteban Ocon, as well as, and Hulkenberg, they can both go in. Hulkenberg is dragging that Sauber up the grid, and it's so bloody impressive. I spoke to Jonathan Wheatley this weekend, team principal of Sauber, and he said to me, Nico is an underrated driver, and I couldn't agree more. Somebody said to me the other week, well, Nico's never got a podium. He's never had a car. I'll tell you what, put Nico Hulkenberg in that Red Bull. He's doing better than Yuki Tsunoda or Liam Lawson. I can tell you that much. So really well done, Nico Hulkenberg. 2 very, very impressive race days from him in the last 2 Grand Prix. And Haas's 200th race. Esteban Ocon getting it up into the points. Another man I spoke to this weekend, the lovely Esteban Ocon, who, Betty, I spoke to him for my other podcast, and Esteban was quite confused at the start, thinking he was doing Fast and Curious again. So I had to explain to Esteban that he wasn't with us, but Fast and Curious loves Esteban and misses him. So it's like, no, Esteban's a different one. I love him. Great man. So well done to Esteban. And I just want to end that little bit of any other business, Betty, with what I said there about, like, what's the point in the second Red Bull seat? Another weekend where Yuki just looks nowhere near. He's not an improvement on Liam Lawson, really. All right, maybe a slight one. But it's sort of falling under the radar at the moment because we've sort of all got bored of talking about it. But is there any point in Red Bull running the second car? Genuinely, because they can't score points with it at the moment. It's just... and Yuki is a good driver. We know Yuki's a good driver. Liam Lawson, decent driver. Daniel Ricciardo, decent driver. Alex Albon, decent driver. Why can nobody drive the second Red Bull? Continues to be a question that eludes the world of Formula One. Are we just going to run one car now? Because what are they going to do about that? I hope in the 2026 regulations they're thinking, how can we make it more drivable? Because, I mean, you're sort of at one step from putting me or you in it, Betty. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I don't know, bring back Nigel Mansell, because you might as well. Do you know what I mean?
If they go anywhere near Isaac Hadjar, I am going to revolt. I am going to revolt because Isaac Hadjar has got something special about him and he just needs time just to, be there without that massive, humongous pressure on his shoulders and just keep doing what he's doing. I do not want him to go near that Red Bull seat.
He said in the press, "Oh, I'm not ready for it." Not for me, Clive. I mean, you could be in Formula One for another 20 years and win 5 championships. You probably still wouldn't be ready for it, Isaac. I think you got Lewis Hamilton going, "Oh, I'm not quite ready for it. Give it another 5 years. Give it till I'm 50. It's like, it's just, what are they going to do? Or, run a Lego car. Might as well.
Might as well. To be fair, would probably be better. Would probably be faster, easier to manage. There we go. Anything else that you want to say from Canada? Did you see anything interesting?
Canada's Montreal is a lovely, lovely city. It's a really cool city. I'd recommend visiting it. It's very hectic on race weekends. A lot of traffic. Getting in and out of the circuit is tricky. But that said, had a lovely, lovely weekend. Really enjoyed myself. And I think the highlight of the weekend was on my track run on Friday night. First ever double lapper, Betty. 2 laps of the track on Friday night.
2 laps, bloody hell.
2 laps. About 9.5k, 2 laps, sports fans, and on lap 2, coming out of the big chicane before the long back straight, a family of what are they called again? Groundhogs. A family of them, and they are the cutest things in the world. I was so close to taking one home, genuinely. And I did say, listen, I said to them, and you'll see this if you go on my Insta or TikTok, you'll see the video. I clearly said, guys, go and find a home for the weekend. Unfortunately, it seemed one of them didn't listen, and that's a shame.
It really, really breaks my heart. I don't know why. I'm being very sensitive today, Christian. And I honestly, when I saw that Lewis Hamilton hit a groundhog, I was like, I just can't deal with this. I just cannot deal with it.
Betty, you mentioned you're in Seattle because Betty's covering a football tournament in Seattle because she's an extremely talented sports broadcaster. But do you think it's because we're both quite tired and jet lagged that it's like overly emotional for us and we can't really deal with it?
Yeah, I think so. I'm having to sort of avoid it. But so yeah, I'm covering this football tournament, the Club World Cup. I'm based in Seattle. My first game tonight is Botafogo, who are a Brazilian football team. I don't know that much about Brazilian football, so I've just spent the last 2 days immersing myself in it, like trying to become an expert.
You don't know much about Botafogo?
Not that much.
What, you call yourself a football journalist and you don't know much about Botafogo? Going low, go down in Botafogo, and it went too long. Hey!
Their star striker, Igor Jesus, is going to be playing in the Premier League next season for Nottingham Forest. So everyone's going to be hearing about him, and you've heard it here first, guys. He's brilliant. So there we go.
Lovely. There you go. Normally we go off on a cricket tangent with Greg. Little football tangent today. Lovely, excellent. Right, shall we go?
Yeah, cricket. Let's go. Christian, thank you very much. I hope you get home okay.
Thanks, mate. And we'll be back before the Austrian Grand Prix with at least one exciting guest. At least one. Actively working on second, but one guest confirmed. I can say who it is. They told me I can say who it is. Do you know who's coming up on the Austrian Grand Prix preview show?
Go on, tell everyone.
James Vowles.
Love James Vowles.
Vowles is on. We're going to do Ask James. We're going to do listener questions. So Fast Curious Pod on the social medias. What are your questions for James Vowles, please? Fast Curious Pod. We're going to do Ask James when he comes on before the Austrian Grand Prix.
Yeah, so we're going to be back before the Austrian Grand Prix. But remember, guys, subscribe to this podcast because we sometimes sneak up with a little emergency episode. And if you're not subscribed, then you won't see it. So do that. We will speak to you before the Austrian Grand Prix. Everybody, goodbye.
Goodbye.